one team that I am worried about offensively, in particular, one player, and that's Tyrese Haliburton. Haliburton this season is averaging a career worst scoring efficiency across the board, career low from 2-point range, career low from three, career low even from the free throw line. And if you dive into the stats with his shooting trends, so far this season, he's shooting only 9% of his shots at the rim. That's down from 15% last postseason. And then last year, he had his hamstring injury. Before the injury, it was at 20%. After at 19%, minimal difference. But the season before that, it was 26%. So it's been a steady decline for Haliburton getting to the basket. Now, last year, with his decreased 3-point percentage, his worsening scoring efficiency, and he wasn't getting to the basket quite as much, people contributed that to the hamstring injury. I've heard with Haliburton, I've had some sources around the league tell me that they believe it's not his hamstring that's the cause of his struggles this year, it's his back. He had back spasms in the postseason. He's still wearing the heating pack on the bench. And I think that would make sense with the trends and the way in which he's playing, the declining efficiency, because back issues are tough to deal with. What have you seen from Haliburton this year, David? Are you concerned about his decline right now? Because it doesn't seem like there's many positive indicators that he's going to get back to that all-NBA level player we saw in the first half of last year.
I actually know a good amount. I was lucky enough to be invited. Pascal Siakam from the Pacers invited his whole team to the gym he has in Orlando. And it's not far from me, so I was invited to be able to come watch. And I saw Tyrese throwing lob dunks to himself. He shot the ball well. He did not play any of the 5-on-5. That's all they really did. They worked out a little bit and they played 5-on-5. He did not play in the 5-on-5, but he worked out every morning. And I thought he looked pretty good. And then I was able to see him pregame this year. They played the Magic, so I went over there and I saw him pregame, looking good, moving well. On the court, it's been a mess. Absolute mess. I've heard about the back thing. I've had people, I've written about Tyrese recently too. I've had people tell me that when you have one hamstring injury, okay, you can recover from it, okay. A second one, which it seems like he had 2 last year, could be devastating for you. And I can't explain the science of it. I'm just a basketball coach. But I understand what that means when they tell me there's real issues with it after when you have the second one. He had back issues last year too. I also think, Kevin, it's in his head. He has turned down wide open 8-foot floaters more than a few times this year. I've watched him play a lot. He just can't go by anyone off the dribble. So he's got to just rely on his right side step 3 that he was so good at before the hamstring injury last year. I remember looking up the numbers when I wrote my article a couple weeks ago. He was like 31% after January 8th I think he got hurt January 7th. I think he's even, I forget what he is now, but he might be even below that now from 3. I don't remember what he is from 3 right now because he's not creating as much. He might be shooting better.
Below that. He is below it now.
And he's not even taking as many tough shots. Remember, he was shooting close to 40% on those shots. He can't even do the sidestep stuff. He just can't get to it. So he's getting better quality shots now than he ever has, and he's shooting poorly. He also admitted, I lead the league in air balls. He said that the other day. I thought it was cute that he can be kind of self-deprecating, but it's a sign of a bigger problem. So there's real issues with him. He is competing more defensively without question. You see him at the point of attack. You see him helping with a little more purpose and physicality. That part's good. But their team is the point guard is so pivotal. If you remember the games 3 and 4 against Boston, he didn't play at all. And Indiana could have easily won both games, including game 1 when he did play. I had Brad Stevens. I had an assistant coach for the Celtics and a player for the Celtics tell me the best guard they faced in the postseason was Andrew Nembhard, Tyrese's replacement at the 1, who plays the 2. So my point is nothing against Andrew Nembhard and nothing against Tyrese Haliburton, but the way they play really does help a talented point guard. It helps his talent be enhanced even more. And so if you don't have Tyrese playing at a high level, Indiana's cooked as currently constructed because he's making so much money. The hope is he worked his way out of it. I have no idea if he will. He is trying hard on defense, which tells me the back thing doesn't wash with me when I see him playing defense the way he's playing it. I think it's in his head. I think he's a little scared of what can I really do? And then he's just not ever shot like this before. That's scary too, like having the yips in baseball from the second base to the first base throw. The hope is he'll figure it out because he's a marvelous, marvelous talent, especially when he's starting to guard a little bit now.
I mean, he was one of the funnest players to watch in the NBA the first half of last season. He's outstanding. He's fun. He plays with joy, a flair. His playmaking is just glorious to watch on the court. I love Tyrese Haliburton, but that guy is not there right now. And you're right. Maybe the hamstring and maybe the back stuff that's floating out there, maybe that's just all insignificant compared to the mental aspect. Because the free throw shooting being below 80% for the first time, maybe in his life. He was an 80+% guy in college at Iowa State. He's been 80+% every year in the NBA, but he's below 80% for the first time. That might indicate that there's something mental going on in addition to everything else that you're seeing with the ball in his hands. Like you said, not taking these floaters, inability to create in the same way. Is that in part maybe because he's been scouted at this point? Are teams defending him a little bit differently that you're seeing at all?
Well, certainly with more purpose, more force, without question of that. But they saw him last year. He was really good for the end of the year before.
He was an all-star.
No, right. I think he's been humbled in a way that he's not used to. This is a very common thing, by the way. And I'm happy to say it's a bit of where I can kind of build my businesses from and always have. Is it's easy to play great when you're already playing great. But how do you manufacture that when your slump or your struggles, whether it's injury, lack of playing time, coach doesn't believe in you, there's lots of reasons why players will struggle. I try to be a voice of reason with them. I really call myself a problem solver as much as anything. I try to solve their problems on the court. I don't work with Tyrese, but I do watch him play a ton. How can you love basketball and not want to watch that guy play? And again, especially because he is trying, but he looks confused as to what can I do? What should I do? That's an issue. He did lose Buddy Hield last year, Kevin. That's important. We talked about Buddy before. I coined the Pacers offense blur ball because Buddy would set those blur screens, would be running towards Tyrese, blur off it, veer off it, ghosted. You can call it slip it. They're all the same thing. The blur is the different part because you're running with pace. You're not just jogging up there. You're racing. It's hard to race towards a screen, veer off it, catch, shoot three, but he could do that well. His gravity allowed those defenders, remember, Hubie Brown always taught, we set screens for one reason, make defenders think. Genius. Smartest nugget of wisdom I ever heard about basketball. You set screens for one reason, make defenders think. So Buddy's man would come towards Tyrese. Tyrese's man knows Buddy's man's coming. They're talking. I got to choose Tyrese. I got to choose Buddy. While they're thinking, that indecision or just decision-making poorly either created a shot for Buddy or a hard straight-line vertical drive for Tyrese. Well, that guy's not there. They don't have anyone yet. Ben Shepherd, I think, can get there. He's not there. Siakam is a very good target, but not and he's shooting great from three, but not as a blur screener. He'll blur and maybe get to the nail or get to the middle of the court where he's dynamic from. Tyrese is not turning that corner hard, rejecting it, getting in the lane. He's shooting shots thinking, I'm Tyrese Haliburton. I'm going to make this shot. And it worked last year until it didn't. Although he did make one big shot in the playoffs, if you remember. It might have been the Knicks game where he made a big three. Maybe it was a Bucks game. I don't remember. But it was an amazing game winner. It's not happening this year for him. So do you let him keep doing it? Probably. I'm guessing he'll just keep doing it. Empower him. They can't be right if he's not close to being an all-star. And right now he's not terrible. He's an average player, but they need him to be much better than average.
I mean, what doesn't hurt? I mean, the Pacers, like you said, Haliburton issue number one. It hurts them also. They lose two of their centers to, unfortunately, torn Achilles. They lose James Wiseman. They lose Isaiah Jackson. So they've been depleted at the center position. Their depth is not what it was without those guys. They have at least the option, not that they're great players by any means, but to have them playing behind Miles Turner. The Pacers clearly are a team at this point that they're going to have to make another trade too. They get Pascal Siakam last year. They're a big move. They're probably going to have to make some other moves around the edges this year.
Well, I did argue before the injuries to their second and third string center, who, by the way, both can play. Wiseman was looking like there's some traction here.
He was figuring stuff out. He was.
Right. And he's the 13-foot lob threat that Miles Turner isn't. You can pick apart with Miles all you want. He loves doing that. But as Tyrese comes downhill or Nembhard or Siakam come downhill off ball screen action, that big who's at the rim has to make a choice. If you guard, all those guys can finish. I've got the lob. If you stay home, they make their shot. Either way, it's a win for them.
And Isaiah Jackson, too, another lob guy. Gone.
Unbelievable talent as an athlete and rim protector. Wiseman wasn't a great rim protector, shockingly. His hand-eye coordination isn't there, it seems to me. Isaiah's was. So they've got to find someone new. I like them running it back because Mathurin didn't play last year. It probably helped them. He was a net negative player last year, but he's allowed to grow. Ben Shepherd was a rookie starting the Eastern Conference Finals, and they almost won those 2 games that he started. He started in place of Tyrese. He's going to get nothing but better, you would think. Nembhard is coming off a fabulous playoff, signed a big deal. There was no reason to think he's missed the last couple of games. I heard he's playing today. I thought they were a team on the rise. My big concern, besides those 2 injuries, is Miles Turner has been really disappointing. Also, in a contract year, I did not expect that. Maybe he'll come around. Siakam's been their only consistent player. Neesmith's been okay. He got hurt the other day in a close loss on the road to, I think, New Orleans. Yeah. He started off 5 for 5 and then didn't play the rest of the game. So they're dealing with some bad injuries, but they have no choice but to do something. You have no backup center. Enrique Freeman's a 2-way player who's really more of a 4-man. He's their backup 5. They've got to do something to get something. And there's some team. They're not the only team that needs help, but they definitely need help with that backup 5 position.
Robert Williams is making his debut for the Blazers this week, his return. I feel like he'd be a guy that I'd love to target if I'm the Pacers for all the reasons you listed. They're missing their lob threat. Robert Williams can provide that. He's injury prone himself, of course, but maybe go get Time Lord from Portland. The question is the difficulty for Indiana. Before the season, I wrote, this will be the year that, the Pacers or Pacers fans say Mathurin's the guy that we have to trade. The problem is, if Haliburton's struggling, I think it necessitates Mathurin's presence being there even more, making him less of a trade asset for your team. So for Indiana, you need Haliburton to be better in order to feel like you can trade a Mathurin to get something of value back. And even then, Mathurin for Robert Williams, I don't think is equal value. Mathurin's younger, still on his rookie deal, doesn't have an injury history like Robert Williams does. You would need more in return. Is there a player out there that you think the Pacers should be looking at to help, shore up that center spot?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things there. So I agree with everything you said, and I did think there would be some consolidation from Indiana. I'm hearing they're looking at JaVale McGee.
I see.
That doesn't excite me if I'm a Pacer fan, but I understand it.
No, not at all. It might not even get aggregated. You saying that? It just might. JaVale McGee.
Right. His athleticism, he can jump still. He's played for a long time, or he sat the bench for a long time. There are other people that they go after. Miami is playing Thomas Bryant behind Bam Adebayo. He's doing extremely well on both ends, and he can shoot. He played in Indiana. But why would Miami trade him? Kevin Love's been gone. He's back now. I don't know if he's going to play or not. And so I don't think they'll go after Kevin Love, but they could if it turns out he's going to be the 3rd string because they have the kid they drafted this last year in Miami as their 3rd string. So, but listen, the Lakers are going to need someone. Jackson Hayes is in some trouble now. So if he's out, they don't have another center. The Kings are playing Trey Lyles as their backup 5. That's not working out good. It's good to be a 7-foot guy that can shoot and protect the rim. If you can do that, you can play in the NBA a long damn time because just not many guys that can do that. And there's teams that really need help right there.
This also speaks to why Utah's holding on so tight to Walker Kessler.
I think
not
so.
A shooter, but he is that rim protector. He is that lob guy, a good screener. He's that guy that can solve a lot of issues. You know who I like? He's not a 7-footer. He's out right now for the Nets. He has a hamstring injury, but Day'Ron Sharpe, 6'9", vacuums rebounds, good screener. He's got great passing feel, kind of a good connective piece. Day'Ron Sharpe's one of those guys that I'd love to see him on a winning team at some point someday. Maybe it'll be one of those teams that you're mentioning.
Well, that, and also we mentioned Looney before. Looney's backing up Trayce Jackson-Davis. I don't know why he's better than Trayce Jackson-Davis, in my opinion. This version, minus 25 pounds. I think I looked up the other day. I saw there's 3 dudes that have 20 or more offensive rebounds, 7 or more steals, 4 or more blocks. Şengün is an all-star. Jokic, who's the world's best, and Looney in way less minutes. So I could see where a team would say, listen, he's in a contract year. We can do something for a longer haul. Whether he's our starter or not is a separate issue. And Golden State doesn't want to probably trade him. He's a nice player for them, and they're doing well. But if they don't want to commit to him starting, I could see some of that happening. It's just not a lot of teams that have depth. The ones that do, like you mentioned with Portland, with Ayton and Klingon and Robert Williams,
they got to move somebody.
Someone's going to be moved.
They have to.
Yeah, someone's
have to move somebody.
Someone's going to be moved. And you'll get some for him because teams are desperate.